another thing I want to throw out, again, based off of my personal experience, because we say myths a lot, but a lot of this is what they believe, right? They believe the earth might have been created a certain way and there's different things there. And I've seen some folks get in trouble with referring to certain things as myths, even though this is what they personally believe as far as faith. And I always try to compare it to like Christianity, for example. There's a lot of things that we can't prove. It's faith based. And why is it that what we believe as Christians is not viewed as myths? But if it's outside of that, it's something that's considered as a myth. So I'm just curious. And again, this is just based off of conversations I've had with some tribal members. It's just like, why is what we believe got to be a myth, but what you believe is the real thing? You know what I'm saying?
Right. In fact, I opened the chapter with a quote from one of the teachers when she was teaching about Earth's history and the geology of the islands. Another one of her students actually shared about some of the quote unquote myths that are part of their culture. And so the teacher responded, "You don't really believe in that, do you?" And again, it was a moment of reflection for this teacher to say, "Oh, wow, like I can't believe that the student was offended. What can I do?" And it was a beautiful moment for the teacher to look back and say, wait a minute, this is an entire cultural identity. So to name it as a myth, to completely relegate it to disbelief, that is compromising an entire culture. And so that's why I go back to the protocol of comparing and questioning. And again, it goes into saying that you're not saying one is not true, but for another way, like let's say you're talking about the science and you're talking about the scientific concepts in the next generation science standards or in the standards in particular, and you're going over the steps of how this was proven and whatnot. And we may not know the specific steps for some of the indigenous ways of knowing, but we have the stories to help us make sense of it. So I think as a teacher, personally, I wouldn't say one is untrue. What I would say is this is what I know that I can prove on this day. However, this is some of the storytelling that goes with it. And it always goes back to storytelling. Anytime we tell a story where we want to fact check it, we want to understand the basis, and all we can say is, well, this is the story that goes with it. Every time we even learn about new legends, legend says da 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 da, that's why. And it's just another opportunity for us to form a context and again to form a memory around something.
I love this. Thank you so much for that, because again, I've seen those kind of conversations not go well, because a lot of our indigenous folks, again, from what I've seen, is like, well, you're coming across as if you're right and we're wrong, or what you believe is better than what I believe. And kind of like what you touched on, it's like someone literally said, you don't really believe that. But there's a lot of stuff that we believe in our religious faith that, again, you can't really prove. It's just like a lot of faith-based or oriented type of doctrines and things like that. So I'm glad that you touched on it that way. Thank you.
And I also think that when we look at it from a storytelling perspective, one, it's fun. We get to learn and hear all of the different stories as well. And when we align the storytelling with the science, again, it goes back to our memory of how we can connect more. Like, for example, with the moon phases, I probably would remember it more, especially if I connected to the story of Mahina and she's walking to the moon. Now, did she actually take steps and walk to the moon? Probably not, but it was a really fun story for me to connect the content, especially when the content is phases of the moon cycle.